This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained?
Yeah, why not? Sure, go ahead, let it out. We deserve it. We had a great week, we had a great record, and we had a great show, and we got another one right here. Look at the sponsor opportunity green room. John Bradshaw, Layfield, the WWE Hall of Fame return rugby advocate and prodigal son has returned. King Gift Egbelu, the inventor of words, is with him, along with Mike Friday, the Sevens genius, and Irish rugby legend George Hook. And look at that. Your company name here, Slate. Oh, man, it is brimming with goodies. So let's get to it. Guys, a good week picking games, but pigs are flying. Snowballs are being thrown in hell. Gift's back on Twitter. And John, the prodigal son, is back from his hiatus. And along with that, we have Mike Friday. This is turning out to be an excellent show already.
It was suffering. Thank you, champ. Thank you, Mike.
Bam! And I tell you where I've been. I've been out of the country. I went down to South Africa because I'm trying to get all of us, not you, Matt, on 2 Cents Rugby, because that's the greatest rugby show in the world. They said, you got Mike Friday? I said, yeah. He goes, hey, Mike Friday's awesome. Him and the King? I said, yep. He goes, come see it. So we're going to 2 Cents Rugby. So this may be our last show with you, Matt. We're gone.
You know what? Then let's make it a good one. Let's make it one to remember.
Why would we make it a good one? Out of all the shows we've done, why would now we do a good show? That's why we're leaving to go to 2 Cents Rugby.
We had a great show last week, John. So go.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Coach Friday's great. King Egbelu's great. And Matt, you suck.
That is so. No, I'm going to human resources on that one, pal.
Go to them. There is no human resources.
Let's not continue this banter. Let's get to the business of rugby. Mike, since you're the guy that seems to know what he's talking about, probably the only one on this panel, why don't you walk us through what you took away from last week?
Well, is it cracking round in the Premiership? A lot of things that we expected. Sale did a proper job on Newcastle. But, wow, what a game down at Sandy Park. Exeter losing, haven't won a game all season, but Bristol again winning. And lots of points as well, and now top of the league. And then we go to the Rec. Went to the Shed. Gloucester doing Bath, and then at half-time, and then Bath coming with the old Finn Russell at the end of the game as Bath do a job at Gloucester. So unbelievable results this weekend in the Premiership. I mean, Harlequins doing a proper job on Saracens. I mean, the Harlequins' defence was exceptional. Halfpenny at the back aerially was fantastic, and they did a job on Saracens. So some really interesting results this week in the Premiership. Kind of a few of the form books went out the window. Bristol on top, Exeter down the bottom. Bottom of the table clash next this week, I think, between Exeter and Newcastle.
Yeah, both 0-4. Who'd have thought that Exeter would be 0-4 at this point?
I told it, though, with the Saints, man. I said the Saints have been playing too many games. They've been playing too much for too many games, and they finally got theirs. That loss to Leicester has been a build-up over the last 2 games, where they should have actually probably lost those last ones before. So I'm hoping this finally ends up the wake-up call that just because you're the champs, just because you won one last year, doesn't mean that you're able to continue on with it this year. And, they got a long season ahead of them, but no surprises.
Hey, Mike, did it surprise you about Quins taking care of Saracens like the way they did?
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I did, because I think like that Saracens pack is formidable, and what they bring on the bench is pretty decent as well. But I think we saw the other side of the Harlequins as well. Some of their attacking rugby, the tries they scored was exceptional against Sarries, but they dealt with Sarries' physical game, and then Saracens went to the aerial game, and then Halfpenny kind of earned his salary. So I was impressed with that. That was a decent performance against a Sarries team that's in form.
All right. How about you, John? What did you take away on your first weekend back?
I love the fact you had 80-something thousand people in Leinster versus Munster. I think that you have round 4 of the URC that's pretty much meaningless. Obviously, it's a rival game, and people love that in Ireland, but it's pretty much a meaningless game as far as standings. You got so much more season left, not going to really affect the playoffs. 80-something thousand people show up for that rugby game. I think it's just amazing. The one thing is, if it had been a championship game, somehow both sides would have lost because Ireland chokes in championship games. So I don't know what would have happened if Leinster would have played Munster, because they both would have somehow lost in a championship game. Right, Matt?
Exactly. And throw the Mets in there too, right, John? Go ahead.
Throw the Mets and your Giants in there too.
Oh, you are. It's good to see you, John. Gift, how about you?
Hey man, look, I'm gonna step it outside both of the leagues. Go back to WXV since it finally completed its run. Man, USA hurts to watch, even though it was great to be able to see what they were doing. But discipline, man, is a MFer with that team, just shooting themselves in the foot. But on the flip side of it, hey, Canada versus England. That is truly a 1 versus 2. I was expecting Canada to take that one. They looked like they had it. England was shooting themselves in the foot, but I guess there's a reason why they're number 1, and they're really trying to gun for finally winning a Rugby World Cup.
Mate, on that Canada game, though, I mean, Canada are coming WXV next year. I mean, they've still got a few more Sevens girls to come in, and they've still got their taliswoman, Sophie de Gaulle, to come back, the 8. So, you know, like you said, they could have won that game against England. I mean, England found a way to get it done, and they're going on about their kind of ranking number, but Canada are coming.
All right. So I took away a couple of things. Jamison Gibson Park finally embraced being bald and shaved his head, but his kid was in a Yankees hat, so I got a problem with him there. Mike, on camera last week, you picked La Rochelle and talked me into La Rochelle, who absolutely got annihilated on the road inexplicably by Bayonne. Not the Bayonne Bombers of New Jersey led by George Delaney, but by Bayonne in the top 14, and it was crazy. But, Mike, you also picked Connacht, and I was with you on this, and they just didn't beat the spread. But what a match and what an effort by Connacht up in that comedically upward blowing rain in Belfast against Ulster. And that was, as John pointed out, another very well attended match. Were you surprised by that outcome?
I went bold on that away win with Connacht just because of the spread, but you know, it was always going to be nip and tuck, and Ulster just managed to get 5 when the spread was 4.5. So they're always cracking games up there, and Connacht, I think, are riding high. Right, they're the poor cousin of the other 3 provinces, and I think they're riding high. But look, I mean, Ronan O'Gara, mate, he proper done me over. I mean, that pack, they must have been the under-16s pack or something, because it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Antonio, there was nobody. They did get a proper spanking by Bayonne.
Also, John, back to the URC. We got some Welsh excitement. Scarlets on the road, winning at Arms Park in Cardiff again, and in the last 11 minutes, they were down 2 men, and Cardiff still could not score that game-winning try or that tying try, depending on the conversion. And Scarlets, down 2 men, holds on to win in that Welsh derby or derby, depending on where you are and how you say it, right, Mike?
That's right.
But, John, you got a buddy from Wales that was probably pretty happy about that, right?
Yeah, my friend Gareth Noakes, my good mate who ran Beyond Rugby after I backed out after I started up rugby, did a great job. In fact, brought over Saracens and Harlequins to have some charity matches over in Bermuda. Gareth Noakes, a great guy, big Welshman. But you know what? This is 2 car wrecks in one garage. No one cares. I mean, no one cares. These are Welsh rugby teams, and unfortunately, they're not very good. You know, look at some of the teams. I mean, the South African teams didn't look very good this week. You have the Hollywood Bet Sharks come up there. They didn't have anybody. You know, and they got boat raced in the game. You know, I think things are going to change once they get back to South Africa. It's going to be interesting to see once these Springboks come back and start playing back on their team, especially when they're playing back. They're a different team down in South Africa. But the Welsh games, it's hard to predict these guys because these guys are just car wrecks. I mean, they're not very good.
Well, right now they're alive in the standings. It's way early, of course.
They're alive in the standings. They play each other. That means that they have a 50-50 chance of winning. One team's got to win. You know, let them play the South African teams. Let them play the Irish teams. Let them play the Scottish teams. Let them play anybody other than themselves.
And speaking of the South African teams, the Bulls and the Lions are undefeated, both winning on the road last weekend. The Lions, 3-0, who would have thought, but they're playing good ball. And they won one on the road, as did the Bulls, destroying their opposition. We got to take a quick break, hear from George Hook, and then bring you guys back in for picks. We'll be right back.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
we're back, and we're welcoming in Mr. George Hook once again. George, welcome back to the Rugby Odds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, our conversation over the next 2 weeks, because you change your hour a week before we do. So for 1 week, you're going to be there's only going to be a 4-hour difference between the US and Ireland, but we can cope with that.
We're not worried about that. It's a global show.
Yeah.
George, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. First off, the women's XV, we touched upon it in our previous segment, but you have a special background in this because you coached the Team USA men's team and you've also coached Ireland's women's team. So you have a vested interest in both sides of this, really. What was your take from the women's XV Ireland win over USA?
All right. Well, in 1986, I was invited to do a coaching session with the University of UCLA women's rugby team. Now, I had never seen a female rugby player in 1986, and here I think this is very important, America were ahead of the world in women's rugby. They weren't ahead of the world in men's rugby, but they were ahead of the world. And they have, to be honest, dissipated that advantage. Don't forget, they were the first world champions. And therefore, to see the results from Vancouver, whereas if you look at North America, Canada are now the form women's team, not just in North America, but perhaps the world.
Yeah.
Ireland then beat New Zealand and the USA. And the USA, quite frankly, were awful. At one point, and it changed the match, the USA were playing with 13 players, 2 yellow cards. There were 3 yellow cards in a short space of time, but 2 of them effectively at the same time brought them down 13 men, and Ireland scored. The other disappointing thing is that the American women seem to favor brawn over brain. And everything is sort of, ruck, maul, 5-meter crash, biff, bang, wallop. And the Irish, I must say, played some really smashing rugby. So the world of women's rugby is changing, and it would be very remiss of us not to keep an eye on it.
And you know what? For me, watching the Irish evolution, so to speak, of the women's 15s program, or renaissance from just 2 years ago when it was in complete disarray, is kind of like watching how the men's sevens program, which was non-existent, just got into sevens and made an impact in short order. Same here with the 15s program.
I think at the end of the day, as a former coach and believing that coaching is important, the change of coach for the Irish women has been very important.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go to the URC and that little match that was held in front of a couple of thousand people over in Croke Park, Leinster, Munster. What was your takeaway from that one?
Can I address that match in a global context, if I may?
Let me check. Yeah, you can.
Do we know any other club rugby game that would attract an audience of 83,000 people? Answer no. Now, there were more people at the Leinster-Munster game than there will be at the Ireland-New Zealand game on the 8th of November. The reason for that is a bit simpler. In the Croke Park's a lot bigger than Lansdowne Road, so that's not a fair comparison. But 83,000 people for a club game?
Crazy.
If the URC itself as a body is thinking about where are we going, then they've got to try and recreate that rivalry. And that's what it's about, rivalry. Like, do the Bulls versus the Sharks generate the same kind of rivalry? Do Edinburgh versus Glasgow generate the same kind of rivalry? Answer, no. Okay?
So wait a minute. How do you do it? How do you do it?
Well, I mean, one didn't, of course, he should be playing that match for 150 years. That probably helps.
So that helps.
Yeah, and you've got to remember Cork is the second city in Ireland, but really thinks it's the first city. So Cork really thinks it's the capital. Then the Limerick, which is further down in population terms, has an incredible rugby tradition. So there's great things going on here around it. Leinster just kicked off very well. They were 21 points up
In an eye blink.
before I got my first cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You know? And interesting, to demonstrate how serious I was about this, I came off the golf course after 9 of the regulation 18 in order not to miss the match, because I hate recording games. So there was that. Then there's a kind of out-half conundrum. Frawley gets his real first start at number 10 for Leinster against the guy in the seat in the shape of Crowley. Snyman, the RG Snyman, South African, who had been, earning his corn for the last 3 or 4 years at Munster, suddenly goes to Leinster and has a blinder.
Wow.
I mean, and what was the name of the guy who gave away all the secrets for the Civil War? What was his name again?
Well, you got Benedict Arnold in the
Benedict Arnold,
that's the Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War. Benedict Arnold's your man. So Simon is the kind of Irish version of Benedict Arnold, because he obviously brought all Munsters, not so much the line-out calls, because you can change them, but it is the philosophy about how you play the line-out, for instance, So that was very interesting, I thought.
But isn't he South African?
Yeah, he is.
So he can't really truly be a Benedict Arnold in that sense. He's, what's his...
Well, he came from Munster with all their secrets in his hip pocket.
He's a mercenary in this story.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
But
I know the thing that really astonishes me here is that you're suddenly getting some kind of conscience in your old age. I mean, that's the surprising part about this conversation. Anyway.
Dumb luck. Were you watching that match and were you infuriated by the officiating?
No, the point is the libel laws in Ireland are much stricter than America. So there's things you can't say in Ireland that you can say in America. But, I mean, there is now no depth to which rugby officiating is not willing to go. Like, when I went to Lansdowne Road as a young fella, you could sit to watch. The match started at 3 o'clock. It ended at 4:30. 40 minutes, 10 minutes at half time, 40 minutes, hour and a half, go home.
You're out. Yeah.
Now you don't know when it's going to end. They're looking at pictures and they're talking to each other, and it's going on and on and on. And it doesn't work. Association football has precisely the same problem.
Yeah.
The problem with them is the guys in the camera are actually worse than the guys in the pitch. This system has failed. Yeah. What's wrong with a couple of mistakes?
Yeah, I like the human element.
Seriously. George Custer made a minor error at the Bighorn. I mean, does it really matter at the end of the day? No.
Follow me. I know a shortcut. Yeah, I'm with you. All right. 30 seconds we have left. Does that Leinster-Munster result mean anything about who's wearing the number 10 in an Ireland jersey tomorrow?
No. I think they will go for Crowley, right? On the basis he's the man in possession, and these November matches, they've got an opportunity in one of the lesser ones to give Frawley a shot, or Frawley can be on the bench and they can bring him off. But when you follow the totemic Johnny Sexton, you're going to take a while to get it fixed. And one more point. France, O'Gara's La Rochelle, my beloved O'Gara, destroyed it a
disaster.
O'Gara embarrassed the whole 9 yards. So, I mean, it's a great weekend if you're interested in rugby. Lot to talk about, lot to watch. Pretty good weekend in all. You know, we got a great program going here. You got a lot to talk about.
We do, but Bayonne beat La Rochelle so soundly, ridiculously. Mike Friday had tears in his eyes because he bet La Rochelle, and he talked me into it too. But anyway, all right, George, thank you very much for taking the time out and enlightening us once again.
Thanks very much.
George Hook, everybody. We'll be right back after this.
From New York City comes America's longest running and most popular rugby show. The biggest names in Major League Rugby, MLR highlights, and big match previews. Rugby Wrap-Up presents MLR Weekly, made in New York City. Hey, U.S. fans, you can tune into every match live on Flow Rugby. How do we know that? Because we're on there all the time. And we're back. Let's pick some matches, guys. Let's start with the URC. John, who do you like, JBL?
This is our second take because Matt McCarthy doesn't speak English, which is also the same as 2 cents rugby. Call us. Call us. I'm taking Zebra over the lines as far as the total. 13.5 points, getting 13 points. Don't think they win, but I think they're doing enough to cover. Lions looked bad last week in a whole road win. Also, I'm taking Sharks at home because I think some of their boys come back. They were awful last week, and they got the league champion coming in, Glasgow. I think they win the game, so give me the Sharks at home.
All right, Zebra looked awful on the road.
I said that. I just said that. All you're doing is repeating what I said.
You said Lions.
They lost 33-3. I just said that.
You said Lions.
You're a parrot.
John, Gift, who do you like?
Yo, look, looking at the Stormers versus Munsters game, I don't know if this Munsters team, this win that Zebra had over them is really worth the same value. But I don't believe this Stormers team is good enough to be able to get 7.5 point favorite over this Munster team. I do believe they'll cover. This is in South Africa. I trust South Africans more than the Irish in this situation. I think Munster is going to jump off from that Leinster loss. They're going to get the win on this one. Look for Munster to pull this one out.
Wow. Mike?
I'm going for Edinburgh. I think they'll more than cover that. I think Cardiff are struggling. I think their squad is under the pump. You know, they've got a small squad as it is. I think all the Welsh regions have got small squads, and that's why they're struggling as a whole. But Edinburgh, and if Edinburgh decide to play everybody again, I think that could be a bit of a car crash, and Edinburgh will win that convincingly. So I'm going Edinburgh by a lot.
All right, I'm going to go with the Bulls on the road. A lot of points, -12.5, but they've been impressive, and they're going against Scarlets, who gave it their all last week. I like the Bulls. All right, let's switch over to the Premiership. And Mike, since you're the obvious choice to pick Premiership matches, why don't you go first?
Oh man, this is tough. I'm gonna go the easy option here, and then make you all have the difficult one. I'm going Exeter. I think Exeter will put more than 12.5 on Newcastle. I know it's Newcastle at home, but I think Exeter are not. I know it's a bottom of the table clash, but Exeter are far better than their position, and I think they'll do a proper job on Newcastle.
John,
Sarries got boat race last week. Mike broke it down very well. I think Sarries bounces back. I know it's a tough game. It's 1.5 point spread. Give me Sarries to bounce back and a win this week.
good match to watch. How about you, Gift?
2 weeks ago, Marcus Smith and the Harlequins should have beat Northampton. They came back and beat Saracens. Bath destroyed under the hands of Finn Russell. This is the matchup to be, but I do like the Harlequins coming out of this one. Though Finn Russell and Bath technically have the talent, I think Harlequins have the momentum in a way that a tougher game that's close is better than a big blowout. I'm looking at Harlequins to be able to cover this spread and get the win.
And, you know, back to that Bristol Saracens match, that's for first place in the table. I know it's early in the season. I'm going to take Leicester. Mike talked me into this off camera. Minus 11.5 versus Gloucester. Cherry and Whites, as Mike said, don't travel well. They're coming off a tough loss. Leicester's coming off a good win, and they're at home again. I like Leicester minus that 11.5. Let's take a break. And
hey, you donkey. You forget the Hall of Fame coach?
And we'll be right back with our picks of the week after this.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now.
And we're back, and it's time for John Bradshaw Layfield's favorite segment, Picks of the Week. Johnny, who do you like?
Hey, first of all, shout out to Perry Baker. He completely changed the game along with Coach Mike Friday for the USA Rugby. Terrific career. He actually, I think, retired a few months ago. USA Rugby just figured it out and announced it. Imagine that. But congrats to a terrific career from one of rugby's all-time greats. I'm taking the Stormers over Munster. Munster is not that good, I don't believe. Leinster scored all their points in the first half. They had 69% of the possession in the second half. They just cruised. Munster gets beat by Zebre. I don't think Munster's that good. I think the Stormers is, and so give me the Stormers to beat Munster.
Gift.
Man, I'm calling for the second round of Battle of the Mountain, the Inter-Ireland Games, Leinster versus Connacht. Look, Leinster is being given 9.5 points. Man, Connacht is going to come with it, but look for Leinster to hold this one in. But Connacht is going to cover. Connacht is bringing all their forces, but Leinster is going to get the win out of this one.
Connacht with the points. How about you, Mike?
Well, I'm going to stick with my theme of trying to pick the away winner in the top 14. Obviously, after Ronan O'Gara let me down dreadfully last week.
Let us down.
He did let us down. He did. He picked the shambles of a pack. But Toulouse, I'm going for Toulouse. I know they're down to win and they got a 6.5 over Pau, but Pau are decent at home. But they've got the man with the cow neck, Dupont, back, and I think he'll start this week. I mean, he come off the bench last week, got a hat trick in 9 minutes. Not bad for a few minutes work. But I think just their pack, their bench, their flair of their backs, and the Dupont effect, I think it's more than enough. And Toulouse on the road, I think they'll win, and they'll win by more than 6.5.
Mike, as a 27-year-old scrum half, you got Dupont as your opponent. What do you do? I'm talking about the Mike Friday in the Premiership.
27.
Yeah, 27.
Well, I'm just gonna fight him the whole time. Really, if I'm honest with you. I'm gonna be treading on his ankle. I'm gonna be doing all sorts of things that I can do because the bloke's a bloody handful. He's a proper handful. And I'm not going to be able to compete with his rugby ability, so I'm going to have to try and do everything else to offset him in the Southeast London way.
Fake snap, fake hit him in the nuts, right? Get him to flinch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You got to do something special to get that neck of his to flinch. It is so thick, it's ridiculous. But you've got to offset the bloke. You've got to upset him. You've got to agitate him. You've got to give him some niggle, just to see if you can distract him.
All right. I'm going to go with the Sharks versus Glasgow on the over. I think this is going to be a track meet in Durban. And just like that, guys, we are out of time. I want to thank John Bradshaw Layfield, the WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate, King Gift Egbelu, the inventor of words, Mike Friday, the Sevens genius, and Irish rugby legend George Hook. And thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. Tell your friends about us. And please join our American Red Cross blood donor team.